There's a quiet misunderstanding that plagues modern men, not just in dating, but in how they perceive desire itself. It begins with a simple assumption that asking for intimacy, or even asking a woman out, is a transaction to be negotiated. You speak, she considers, and based on your performance, your words, your politeness, and your presentation, she gives her approval. But this isn't how desire works. Not for women, not for men, and certainly not for the dynamic between them. To approach a modern woman, you must first understand something that many men have never been taught. Female desire is not a question you pose. It's a tension you ignite. You don't earn it through perfect behavior, and you don't secure it by asking for it directly. Desire, true, bodily, unconscious desire, is not activated by logic. It is awakened by presence, energy, and the mystery of restraint. This is where Stoicism enters. Not as an aesthetic, not as a cold detachment, but as a discipline of emotional control. When a man has mastered his impulses, his need for approval, his craving for outcome, he begins to emit a different kind of signal. A signal that doesn't beg, that doesn't chase, that doesn't say, "Do you want to go out with me?" but instead asks something far more primal. Can you feel me? Because she can. She always can. Most men fail not because they don't try hard enough, but because they try in the wrong direction. They believe that more effort, more kindness, and more patience will unlock her desire. But what if the key was never in the lock? What if she had already decided subconsciously within minutes of meeting you? Studies in evolutionary psychology have long suggested that mate selection, especially from the female perspective, is more reactive than proactive. She feels first, then she reasons later. And that's what no one tells you. She accepts intimacy. She rejects incongruence when your body says you're unsure, but your mouth is asking her out. When your eyes avoid her, but your words declare interest. When you try to be good instead of being grounded, that's not masculinity, it's performance. And no woman is aroused by performance. Here's the paradox. You must make her feel chosen, while at the same time making it clear that you don't need her to feel whole. That tension between availability and indifference is what sparks attraction. Not indifference as in coldness, but as in centeredness. She must sense that you move toward her not from hunger, but from fullness. You want her, but you don't need her. You lead not because she allows you, but because you know where you're going. And if she wants to walk with you, she may. If not, you're still walking. This is the masculine frame that modern women crave, yet rarely encounter. Let's reflect on a psychological principle often overlooked in dating: mirror neurons. These are the cells in the brain that allow us to feel what another is feeling just by being near them. If you're anxious, she picks it up. If you're doubtful, she mirrors that doubt. If you're calm, clear, and composed, she relaxes, opens, and receives. The lesson? You cannot fake confidence. Your nervous system speaks louder than your words. Which brings us to the next uncomfortable truth. When a man asks, "Can I kiss you?" he believes he's showing respect. But to her, that question often reads as hesitation. And hesitation is the opposite of seduction. Not because women want to be pressured. They don't. But because they want to feel led. Not dominated, but guided. Not asked to carry the moment, but to surrender to it willingly, eagerly, without pressure. You may say, "But I don't want to be disrespectful." And that's noble. But real respect is not in question. It's in the presence. A man who can stand close to her, look her in the eyes, feel the weight of his desire, and remain calm. That man is already speaking. He doesn't have to ask if it's okay. He's already listening. He senses the moment not with his ears, but with his being. That's the psychological sophistication that most men never develop. And here's the tragedy. He goes on dates, pays for dinner, laughs at her jokes, sends good morning texts, waits for her comfort, and still, he gets rejected. Meanwhile, another man, less courteous, more emotionally centered, steps into her space with intention, and she folds into him. Why? Because desire is not about fairness, it's about polarity. This is the magnetism of masculine and feminine energy. The polarity that Jung spoke of when he described the anima, the inner feminine within the man that seeks connection, mystery, and allure. When a man is ruled by the anima unconsciously, He becomes needy, irrational, and desperate for union. But when he integrates it, when he feels desire, but is not devoured by it, he becomes whole. And in that wholeness, he becomes deeply attractive. Most modern men have never integrated their anima. They repress it, or worse, they chase it in women, seeking in her what they refuse to find in themselves. That's why their energy is scattered. That's why they appear needy. They are not rooted in their being. They're leaning into hers. And she feels that, instantly. She may smile. She may hug you goodbye. But inside, she's already decided, he doesn't move me. To ask a woman out from this place is to guarantee failure. Because it's not a question. It's a test. She's not just hearing your words. She's watching how you hold yourself. Are you playful without needing her to laugh? Are you confident without needing her approval? Are you leading with clarity or waiting for permission? To walk up to a woman and say, we should get a drink sometime, from a grounded place, not with forced charm or anticipation, but with ease and presence. That's an invitation, not a proposition. It leaves space. It respects her autonomy, but it also makes your desire known. And here's the beautiful irony. When you're indifferent to outcome, you become infinitely more desirable. Because the moment you stop needing her to say yes, she starts wondering what it would feel like to. That's where this begins. Not in asking for a date, but in becoming a man who doesn't need one. A man who creates space, who embodies tension, who invites without chasing. The Stoics would say, be indifferent to what does not depend on you. And her decision, her desire, is not yours to control. But your energy, your intention, that's yours to master. And once you do, you won't be asking her out. She'll be stepping closer, wondering why she wants to say yes. To understand how to ask a modern woman out, you have to unlearn what you've been told. You've been taught to be polite, respectful, and deferential. That's fine in theory, but in practice, those behaviors often conceal fear. And a woman doesn't respond to fear. She may tolerate it, she may even pity it, but she doesn't desire it. Because what she truly wants, whether she says it or not, is a man who can lead emotionally, who takes responsibility for the moment without apology. Not a man who hides behind softness and then resents her when she disappears. A man who makes her feel, without trying to convince her. This doesn't mean being aggressive. It means being attuned. Let's break that down through one of the most misunderstood interactions. The man who asks for permission. Can I kiss you? Do you want to go out sometime? Would it be okay if we spent more time together? What's wrong with these questions? Nothing, except everything behind them. The tone, the uncertainty, the subtle hope that she'll permit you to act. That's not an attraction. That's subordination. She's not looking for a subordinate. She's looking for a sovereign. Because female desire is reactive. It's not initiated by the mind. It's awakened from the body. When you ask about uncertainty, she doesn't just hear words. Her nervous system feels yours. It senses doubt, and that doubt kills the moment. But if you act from centeredness, even silence becomes seductive. This is where Stoicism returns, not as distance, but as depth. A Stoic man doesn't ask if he's allowed to feel something. He doesn't wait for emotional cues before moving forward. He moves from principle, not permission. If she's open, he leads. If she declines, he doesn't collapse. His center remains intact. That's power, not dominance, not arrogance, but grounded, internal power, the kind that doesn't flinch at rejection because it wasn't desperate to begin with. Let's imagine the scenario. You're at her place. The mood is right. You feel the tension, but instead of acting on it, you ask, should I kiss you? The moment vanishes. Not because she didn't want it, but because you didn't trust it. You made her the leader and she didn't want that responsibility. But if instead you move slowly, with presence, no rush, no hunger, your body speaks. Your energy asks without asking. You close the space not with words but with intention. And if she doesn't want it, she'll move. That's her role. Your role is to lead with clarity, not force. This is where most men misunderstand consent. Consent isn't verbalizing everything like a legal contract. It's tuning into the moment, being so connected to your energy that you feel when she's in sync with you. and being calm enough to accept it when she's not. Because when you're truly connected to yourself, you're not asking if she wants you. You're allowing her to feel whether she does. That difference changes everything. Here's where things get more psychological. Women often feel more attracted to men they can't fully read. This isn't a game. It's an unconscious biological mechanism. When a man is too available, too transparent, too emotionally reactive, she knows exactly how to handle him, and that predictability drains the tension. The tension of not knowing is what fuels desire. Not knowing what he'll say next. Not knowing how deeply he feels. Not knowing whether he's fully hers. That mystery pulls her in. But not if it's fake. If you're pretending to be unavailable, she sees through it. But if you truly don't need her validation, if your emotional center is intact, she doesn't know how to dominate you, and that activates something ancient inside her. It's what Carl Jung would call the shadow of the anima, the part of her psyche that doesn't want safety, but depth, not approval, but tension, not promises, but presence. Most men feed her surface self, the one that says she wants a nice guy, but few dare to awaken her deeper self, the one that aches to be pulled into something real, something she can't control, something that stirs her beyond logic. And that's your task, not to manipulate, but to stand still, to stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, and overcompensating, to say less, but mean more, to be less legible, but more rooted, so that when she's with you, she doesn't hear words, she feels waves. Women don't remember conversations. They remember how a man made them feel. So, how do you ask her out without asking her out? You begin by asking nothing. You build a connection, but not dependence. You show interest, but not attachment. You touch her soul with your gaze, not your fingers. And when the time comes, you lead, not with a request, but with movement, with a decision, with an invitation she can decline, but won't want to. It wasn't words that persuaded her. It was who you became. Here's a deeper truth, one few will admit. When a woman feels like the one who initiated intimacy, when she believes it was her idea, the desire becomes more powerful. That's not manipulation. That's alignment. You created the container, she entered it of her own will. And that's what she wants, to choose. But to choose a man who's already chosen himself. You'll notice it in small things. When she asks if you're always this calm. When she lingers longer after a joke. When she says she feels strange around you. Nervous, but doesn't know why. That's her opening the door. And you didn't have to knock. You just had to be still enough for her to hear the silence between you. In that silence, she decides. This is why begging never works. Why over-asking kills attraction. Because if she says yes just to avoid hurting your feelings, what you get is compliance, not desire. And you don't want a woman who complies. You want a woman who chooses. And if she never chooses you, then walk on, with dignity. Because rejection doesn't damage the man who is already full. That's what Stoicism teaches you. Not to suppress your want, but to hold it lightly. To feel desire without being owned by it. To lead, not chase. To ask, not plead. To invite, not cling. So the next time you think of asking her out, ask yourself first. Am I asking because I need her? Or because I'd like to share this moment with her, with no loss to my wholeness if she declines? That answer defines everything. Let's speak now. If you have to ask a woman for intimacy, if you have to plead for her interest, if your invitation feels like you're requesting approval, you're not asking, you're submitting. And no woman feels desire for submission dressed as a smile. She may tolerate it. She may enjoy the attention. But deep inside, where her instincts live, where her anima listens, there is no movement. That's the truth that too many men avoid. Desire cannot be begged for. It must be provoked. And provocation in this sense is not vulgarity or manipulation. It is containment, emotional gravity, an unshakable center that pulls her toward you, not because you demand her attention, but because your energy makes it hard to look away. Here's what most men never realize. She doesn't remember the man who tried to win her with words. She remembers the man whose presence made her forget time, the one whose silence felt like pressure, the one who didn't ask, "What do you want to do this weekend?" but simply said, "Let's go." The man who didn't turn her into his mirror, seeking her reaction to validate his worth, but the one who already carried that worth so firmly that her reaction became irrelevant. When a man is that full of focus, of purpose, of direction, he becomes dangerous in the best way, because he stops reacting. And when a man stops reacting, the dynamic flips entirely. Now she's the one leaning in. You don't chase her through texts. You don't decode every emoji or analyze her silences. You don't spiral into insecurity when she delays her reply, because your inner world is not contingent on her response. That's the paradox. When you stop needing her attention, you start getting it. Not because you asked, but because you've become a challenge, a mystery, an anchor in a storm of emotional noise. Let's bring this into practical terms. You're sitting across from her. She's laughing, she's curious, but you don't ask her to see you again. You don't say, "Do you like me?" You lean back. You smile. You pause. And if the moment is right, you simply say, "Next week, I know a place you'll love." And leave it at that. No begging. No waiting for her nod. You've set the tone. And if she's aligned with that tone, she follows. If not, you walk. It's not about the words. It's about the posture, the control, the clarity. Because your value isn't proven by how much you like her. It's proven by how little you need her to like you back. Let's go deeper into psychology. A woman's sexual desire often emerges from contradiction, safety mixed with danger, comfort balanced with mystery, attention laced with restraint. That's the paradox that awakens the anima. She wants to feel secure, yes, but not bored. She wants to feel chosen, but not owned. She wants the door to be open, but she wants to be the one to walk through it. So stop trying to force it. Your role is to build the architecture of that desire, not to fill it with pressure, not to break it down with neediness, but to hold the space. Do you know how powerful it is when a woman leans into a man and says, "Are you always like this?" Calm, unshaken. That question, right there, is your proof. Not that she approves of you, but she notices you. Because attention is not given, it's earned by presence. And presence is trained by stillness. Stoicism teaches us to master the emotions that weaken our will, to act from reason, not from chaos, to feel fully, but not be governed by the flickering of impulse. This is the path of the centered man, the man who doesn't need her to say yes to prove anything about himself. He already knows who he is. And ironically, that's exactly why she wants to say yes. Here's the final insight, and it might sting. If she agrees to be with you only after you've begged, convinced, pleaded, negotiated, she's not really with you. She's responding to pressure. And that's not intimacy. That's charity. And charity is the opposite of desire. So what's the alternative? Create the frame. Build the tension. Hold the energy. Don't fill every silence with words. Don't fill every doubt with explanation. Let her feel your desire without collapsing into it. Let her choose you, while knowing you would have stood tall if she hadn't. Because the most powerful trick, if you even want to call it that, is to make her feel like the invitation was her idea. That she crossed the line not because you dragged her across it, but because the space you created was magnetic, and stepping toward you felt like the only thing that made sense. You'll hear it in small phrases. "Do you want to stay a little longer? I feel strange around you. I've never met someone like you before." She's not asking questions. She's giving you the signal. And you didn't ask for it. You inspired it. That's what changes everything. When the yes comes from her, not to avoid hurting you, but because she truly wants you, that's the beginning of real intimacy. You don't ask for sex. You don't ask for desire. You embody it. And once you do, she feels it before you speak. She follows it without needing to know why. So next time you ask a woman out, don't lead, invite, move with intention, and let her curiosity close the distance. Because the man who doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't flinch, it is the one she remembers. If this video helped you see things in a different light, leave a comment below. I read every single one. And if you're ready to step into the kind of masculinity that doesn't ask, but inspires, subscribe, turn on the bell, and welcome to the journey.